So the big question is this: how do passionate golfers like you and I develop a stock shot day in and day out? A stock shot that's as reliable as the sun coming up in the morning. That's the question, and this podcast is the answer. Welcome to Stock Shot Secrets. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Stock Shot Secrets. I got my boy Jermaine Kearse, Mr. Seattle Seahawk, which makes it amazing, on the show today. Jermaine, thanks so much for being here, bro.
Yeah, happy to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Jermaine and I kind of connected. Jermaine now owns, he's gone from dominating and winning Super Bowls with the Seahawks, being basically, is it a Washingtonian? I should know that, being from Washington. Is that what they call them?
Yeah, pretty much.
What's called Washingtonian. High school in Washington, college in Washington, played for Seattle, short stint with, was it the Jets in Detroit, I think?
Yep.
Right? And then, but then decided, avid golfer, and then opens a facility in Seattle called Evergreen, right? So, so now you've had, we'll kind of talk a little bit of we can talk about business, we can talk about football, we can talk about golf, but what was that for you? We'll talk a little bit about golf to start. Like, what was the calling for you after leaving football, doing that and going, you know what, like, I want to get into this golf space and really kind of like help players?
Yeah, so, I mean, once I retired in 2019, and I spent some time just trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do post-football. I spent some time at the University of Washington, my alma mater, seeing if I wanted to kind of get on the other side of football and the coaching aspect, or somewhat involved on that side. And I spent some time doing that, and I enjoyed it. It was very time consuming, and I just kind of wanted to get into something something new a little bit, something that was going to continue to challenge me. And I was super passionate about the game of golf, and I was able to get connected with Andrew Putnam, a PGA Tour player, and kind of talk to him a little bit. And then he introduced me to my now business partner, Greg Bodine, who was at the time just finishing caddying up with Tony Finau, who is now currently on Bryson DeChambeau's bag right now. And so that kind of is just how it led up. I just kind of wanted to spend my time doing something I was passionate about. It's something that I enjoy doing on a daily basis.
So what's your handicap these days?
I'm down to like a little below a 5. I think it's like a 4.7 right now.
Is that your lowest?
I think my lowest is maybe like a 3.9, like low 4s. So it's a continuous.
Because you started playing, didn't you kind of start playing golf later?
I started around like 2014, 2016 when I went to New Jersey. When I was playing for the Jets is kind of when I really started really getting into it. Kind of, I would say my addiction to the game of golf kind of started.
Right. I went to the Seattle Seahawks training camp. What was this? Maybe like 3 years ago. I think there's actually a podcast on that, on my observations from that. But I went to a training camp, and there was the guys like in between. They were hitting wedges, towards like the back fence, towards Lake Washington, I guess. But so
during the Bowen Classic, they'll bring out like a little floating green.
Nice. Did you ever get to hit it? Did you ever get to hit?
Yeah, for sure. Fred Couples came out.
Did you hit the green?
Yeah, it's hard to hold the green. That's the problem. I hit the green.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, kind of going a little bit in football, right? Because you're at a training facility now, with Evergreen, and kind of, you guys got a lot of different things like lessons and fitness. It's an academy and building one and trying to do all that kind of stuff. But more so, like as a player, what do you find to be? And, I don't know how much thought you put into it, but how much correlation do you find between the training in football and the training in golf? Like the similarities, if you will, because I kind of have an opinion that they're actually all sports are very, very similar. But, what are some of those attributes that you had in football as training and reaching the highest level, right? Like this week that we're filming it, we're literally in draft week. So, I mean, there is guys like, like their highest high, because it's kind of like they made it, right? Because once you get drafted and you're on a team, like you're there. Well, the journey's not over yet, but you get what I'm saying. So some of that training, how is that correlated over into being as a player in golf? Because you're playing tournament golf, right? You're trying to play some tournament golf.
Yeah, I just started playing tournament golf maybe like 2 years ago. And it's very comparable. I mean, like you said, it's very similar in terms of just, the time put in. Whether it's, working on my golf fitness, that's a thing. A lot of people
Right?
would think
No, it is
golf
for
fitness is
sure.
a thing. It's a huge thing. Golf stamina is a huge thing.
Yep.
Just ultimately like working on your game and perfecting your craft.
And it's a different type in regards to that fitness. It's a different type of fitness. I mean, I was teaching Joey Galloway and like super fast, right? Like at the time, I think it's been shattered now, but it might not be. Like he had like the fastest 40 time, for a wide receiver for a while. But the dude's super fast, but it's like linear speed, right? It's not like this horizontal rotational speed, which is different. The dude, when you try to put him in position, it was like trying to bend a telephone pole. But it's a different type of fitness.
No, 100%. And you're just using different type of muscles. And, I think that the difference, that I've learned with, translating from football and into golf is just, with football, you just naturally think overpower, and more so like have control, where like I've kind of learned with golf, is you kind of got to give up a little to get a little.
Yeah.
And, in terms of like, just like with club head speed, like, I can try and swing like as fast as I can, and it's just like never not getting the results that I want. But then as soon as I, feel like, the biggest thing is like, if I take a bigger backswing, I'm actually going to slow or swing it slower. And, to me, I'm like, okay, like let me just try to feel like I'm taking the club back, like a John Rahm type height. And next, my club head speed jumps by 4 miles per hour. And it's just very counterintuitive. It doesn't make sense to me. That's why I love this game, because it's so frustrating.
Yeah,
Uh,
I hear ya. So because you did have a little, are you still doing assistant? Are you still doing some coaching at UW? Because I know
no,
last time, so you kind of
no,
dropped that. So,
yeah,
but
I
when
just
you were with the Hawks and you were what was kind of, if you can kind of, I'm dating a little memory here because it's been, I don't know what, 3-4 years now, but if you kind of look through the regimen, because I think for the players and the people that are listening to the podcast or on YouTube, like they're passionate golfers, right? They literally are you, right? So you are the avatar, if you will, of the listener, besides the fact that you won a Super Bowl and you played in the NFL and an amazing human being and so on and so forth. But as a golfer, like they're you, right? How were your practices at the Hawks scheduled, right? Like not scheduled meaning like, hey, okay, so when you walked out of the VMAC, like what was the first thing you guys did as wide receivers? And then maybe the second thing, the third thing, and the fourth thing. Was there a schedule in which you guys went about your business that seemed like, okay, I know that it's kind of this, and then this, and then this, and then this?
in terms of practice, like
Yeah,
our
just like, hey, the first thing that you do was like in golf, it's the first thing that we do is we program, right? So it's like we're going to go in a mirror and we're going to check our grip and just make sure our fundamentals are good, right? And it's very slow reps, like kind of like walkthroughs, if you will. And
yeah,
then we'd kind of go into block practice, which is like doing the same pattern and making sure it's perfect, and then random, and then compete. But
yeah.
um,
Well, it's pretty similar in terms of just like our practice schedule. When we get out there, the first thing we do is get our bodies warm, and then we go into a walkthrough. So we're going over our game or install, in a slow, like you said, like in a slow manner, like in terms of like checking your grip. We're checking our formations. We're checking our routes,
yeah.
looks against certain defenses, and then we go into
And would
routes
that
on.
be for you? Would that even be as a wide receiver? Would that be like just making sure you're doing your motion of running a route, like you're doing super slow, almost like Tai Chi, like making
Yeah,
sure your running form is good? I mean, it's like 2 or 3 minutes. I mean, I remember seeing Geno Smith literally like going like this, and like he's just rehearsing slowly his pattern like 5-6 times. I was like, oh my gosh, that's like what we do in golf.
yeah, we're rehearsing what our routes are looking like compared to certain coverages. The QB's going through his reads slowly, the offensive line's going through their checks.
Yep.
And then we progress into like our routes on air, which is, I guess you would call like our block practice. That's when we're
Yep.
actually running our routes. We're getting our timing
No
down.
defense.
No defense. It's just us and the QBs, running our routes, just getting that timing and that chemistry going. And then after that, we start heading into, like our competitive aspects where in terms of like 1-on-1, 7-on-7.
And what would, in regards to how long, because I think there's some stipulations with the NFL and all that stuff, but how long are, because I want to continue on this, but how long is this practice, this
Like
on field at VMAC?
it's probably, with Pete,
3 hours?
it's around two,
2 hours?
some,
Okay.
some coaches are 3 hours.
So how long would you guys be doing like your block practice where you're running like the same route over and over and over and over again?
Probably 10 minutes.
10 minutes. And then you go into, and that would be our equivalent in the golf world of like, your cone drill or like your noodle drill or like whatever, right? Obviously, you're a professional, so a professional football player. So that would be like, even a professional would be the same way where I might do a block practice, but I'm going to do it for 10 or 15 minutes. I'm not going to do it for an hour because
Yeah,
I don't need to. I have inventory. I just need to recalibrate and make sure I'm reminding myself of what I did yesterday,
for
right?
sure.
And then after that, you would go into your random practice, and that would be, what were you saying with the random was?
Would be kind of like our 7-on-7, kind of start our 1-on-1, starting to kind of head into a little more competitive,
Yep.
where, the environment is not as controlled, where now there's a lot of reactionary stuff.
Yeah. And then what would it end with?
And then we'll end with team periods. So
Which would
that's be like game simulation.
would Pete have you guys play for anything? Or was it
I mean,
just, were you guys all so competitive that just losing would piss you off enough?
yeah, we were very competitive. So I mean, we didn't really need anything on the line to kind of get us going. Being practicing against the Legion of Boom every practice, there, you had enough motivation.
Hey guys, I hope you are enjoying this episode of the Stock Shot Secrets podcast. If you are enjoying it, be sure to like this episode. Be sure to subscribe so you can always see when they're coming out. And most importantly, if you would be so kind to be able to share this podcast with other passionate golfers who are trying to get better and build stock shots, because it grows through you sharing it. Thank you so much for tuning in. And now back to Stock Shot Secrets. Right. With that Legion of Boom and like some of those players, who were some of the players that have you had any golf buddies that you've helped, bring them into the game with now that you've got this new amazing facility?
Cam Chancellor has gotten into golf pretty heavy. He started kind of getting out there. The bug kind of has got him. Cliff Averill has expressed has gone out there to play a little bit golf. Marcus Trufant, one of the OGs of the Seahawks, he's
Nice.
into the game. So I took out Cam, KJ, right, a couple guys, and which is pretty cool because you're starting to see a lot of football players kind of get into the game of golf, and they're starting to kind of see the enjoyment that everyone else who's already been playing golf has been having.
Yeah, they're late to the party.
Yeah.
What about so playing at a really, really high level and playing in Super Bowls and so on and so forth? What about just some of the mental side, right? So like there's the technical side of like how you're practicing, but then what are some of the mental things that you had on the football field that you feel like now on the golf course that's actually like eerily similar, right? Like some traits that you kind of were training for golf your whole life in a sense, but it was on a football field, but they're the same.
Yeah, it's just the next play mentality, really. It's kind of like the next play, the next shot type of mentality. Regardless of what just happened, you have to, be prepared and mentally in it to perform the next task. And that's very similar with golf. You hit a good drive, you catch a good pass, you got the next shot, you got the next play that's coming. And so you always kind of got to stay in it, which I found very similar between golf and football. And honestly, in sports in general, the mentality, especially playing at a high level, is, very similar. Now the difference, the similarities between football and golf that I found, is kind of like the in between periods. With basketball, it's pretty continuous. Soccer is pretty continuous. With football, you run a play, you got some time period in between the next play. With golf, you hit a shot, you're walking to your ball, so there's some time period in between each player and each shot. And so that's where the mental game, I feel like is where you have to be the strongest, is because the time in between each start and stop period,
So there is, because in golf, if you play, like the stats are essentially if you play a 5-hour round of golf, you're actually only hitting a ball for 1 minute. You're doing the act of golfing for 24 to 27 minutes if you shoot even par, meaning like your routine and so on and so forth. But then there's 4.5 hours of mindlessness, like, time in between shots. So that's interesting because while I am, obsessed with football and it's like my favorite viewing sport, and, like my son and I are glued to the draft last night and just on Sundays and Saturdays. It's interesting. So you're saying on the football field, there is quite a bit of, we'll call, mental chatter in between these plays.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the average football play is 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And so, like you said, we're playing a game for, 3.5 hours.
So is it similar? What about when running a route? Like, is there mental chatter in regards to like a drop ball, or is it as reactionary as like the viewer would think?
I mean, the football is very reactionary. I'm just, if you drop a pass, from that point to the next play,
Right.
there is a mental chatter because you kind of got to let that, play go and be prepared to perform the next play.
Yeah.
It's always continuous and is always a continuous mental battle. Even on the positives, so that you make a huge play, you got to have the composure to come
Oh, you
back.
mean like a big long pass down the right sideline, like Super Bowl to kind of get your team to win a Super Bowl? Yeah. Like, oh,
Yeah,
you would know that. Cool. Okay.
you kind of have to have the mental composure and poise to be able to, bring yourself back into the moment, into the present,
Yeah.
to be able to perform again. And that's what I kind of found very similar with golf. You hit a good drive, you got to mentally compose yourself and bring yourself back to be able to perform the next shot.
So with and not to kind of put you on the spot, but a question like at Evergreen, are you doing any? I know not technical teaching like in coaching, but are you doing any coaching per se, like with any of the players at Evergreen? Maybe just in the sport itself.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of our competitive juniors is mostly I do just like a lot of support, a lot of mental support in terms of like how they're thinking in terms of prepping for a tournament, how are they, post round tournaments, how are they feeling, like what's
Yeah.
their mentality at. That's kind of where I usually,
Your
hang in,
niche.
yeah, in that area. It's just more so building relationships with juniors. I think that's the best area.
Are there? Do you find that there's some carryover from what Pete Carroll, or maybe because I think you played for Steve Sarkisian, right, at UW? Like, are there any carryovers of principles where you're doing it and you're like, this is like, you're talking about him and you're like, this is kind of like a Pete Carroll thing, or like a Steve thing, like
every single time. I just sit there.
what are some of those things that those nuggets that, like, when you look back at your time with Pete, you go, these 2 or 3 things really sum up my a Pete Carroll experience, because he was a very sought after coach, like at least from what you would read in the newspaper, like a very sought after coach to play for. Like, he seemed very much like a player's coach.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing is always compete, that's just like the number one thing that we kind of instilled in our culture at Evergreen is just the culture of competition. The next thing would be just accountability. I think, all the juniors that I've built relationships with know that I'm going to hold them accountable to their word, to what they want to accomplish. And I think they really kind of enjoy that level of support of knowing that I'm going to be there to encourage them, but also, if I kind of got to get on them a little bit, like I think they appreciate that too. So I think it's just like a healthy balance of being able to have the right amount of encouragement and support, but hold them accountable to what they want to achieve and what they tell me that they want to achieve. If you tell me you want to do something, then
I'm kind of asking this because as a coach and obviously a massive diehard Hawks fan, but when those things of accountability that the player would maybe misfire and they weren't doing that, was the reaction from Pete Carroll usually one of more encouragement, or was it more of a I don't know. I'm making a judgment. I've never met Nick Saban, but more of a Nick Saban type, like, hey, let me kind of get in your face a little bit.
I don't think it's. I like to say especially with some of our younger juniors, I would describe it as sometimes I might have to put my parent voice on.
I
Uh,
I got that one too.
sometimes you gotta give them the parent voice, a little stern.
Yeah.
But it's never, it's never over the top. It's encouragement, but it's also, getting them to understand the realities of the type of level they want to achieve and
What's
how
required?
hard it is to get to it. It is required to tell them the truth, and how hard it is to get to that level. And I think sometimes a lot of kids want to do certain things, they want to reach certain levels, but sometimes they don't always want to do what's necessary to get there, and sometimes you just kind of got to give them, and they're young, they're you know they don't know what we know. As we get older and wiser, I'm still continuing. As I get older, I'm still continuing to learn a lot about myself, and just growth. And so just trying to be able to just have be that person, that one that would tell them the truth, but also help them and show them, the path of what it takes to actually reach a high level in something.
Absolutely. And one final question, just kind of reflecting back on your, well, two questions actually. We'll do one past, one present. Looking back at your playing football career, what's one of the more defining moments or like highlight reels that, like, when you're laying at bed and you're like, that's a moment where you go, man, that was sweet. Like just a cool story.
Yeah, I mean, obviously winning the Super Bowl is kind of hard to beat, just like, the team that we had and just that whole experience, and then the fashion that we did it was super cool. And then
How hard
that
was the mental adversity the next year? Because I mean, we had talked about that in regards to that. Like, was that the highest of highs and the lowest of lows?
I mean, yeah, that is probably the best. You go from one winning the Super Bowl to possibly winning two to having it instantly just taken away.
Yeah.
Definitely be a dramatic feel for sure. But I think the Green Bay game, the NFC Championship game, just the type of game that was, with all the adversity that came with it, and then being able to overcome that, and have the perseverance to still come out on top.
Yep, absolutely. And then what about just for you, Jermaine, like in the future? Is there anything you have coming up on the horizon that you're, really looking forward to? I mean, you're now with Evergreen, what, you're in year two?
Year
I
two.
think? Year
Yep.
two? Is there anything in the future you're looking forward to?
Yeah, we're looking to expand a little bit, which is definitely on our plans, and being able to, continue to create more spaces, and then just tournament golf. I
Yeah,
love competing, and I kind of got a whole list of tournaments that I got scheduled for this year, and just
that's
continue
awesome.
to put myself out there, and try to get better, and compete. I have the goals to win. That's the always the goal, and so you just continuing to do the work to try to achieve that.
How often do you get to practice these days?
I
Being a
mean, I
business
practice
owner and a dad. Three kids, right? Three girls?
three kids. I always try to find some time to practice on some sort of aspect of my game.
Yeah.
So
Each day?
mostly every day.
Look at you. You overachiever. That's
Whether
awesome.
it's I gotta get up early. I
Yep,
use
I hear you. Make
gotta
time when
work.
you don't have any time.
Yeah. So
Well, that's awesome, Jermaine. Well, thank you so much for sharing some stories. We wish you best of luck at Evergreen, and everything else. If people want to, follow you or know more about Evergreen, how would you like them to reach out and kind of just see Jermaine's story a little bit more?
yeah, I mean, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, jkearse15, and then you can follow Evergreen Golf Club on Instagram as well.
Cool. Well, best of luck in your tournaments, and thank you so much for being a guest on Stock Shot Secrets.
I appreciate it.
See you, buddy. Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the latest episode of Stock Shot Secrets. Now, as a listener of Stock Shot Secrets, I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to get better. So if you were to go to stockshotclub.com, I'm going to give you 7 days free access where you can send us your video and we will give you personalized individual attention as to what you need to do so that you can start building stock shots. So just go to stockshotclub.com and register there. We'll give you 7 days free where you can try it. And then if we like it, you can stay inside the Stock Shot Club where we can become your coach and walk with you for your entire journey. Thank you so much. And be sure to go visit stockshotclub.com.